Scilab completes its version of the dimensional converter tech, with them 100% free of NetNavi abuse thanks to the data and hardware they recovered from Regal satellites, allowing them to finally get around that one flaw in them. Even better, the vaccine chip is ready for public testing, meaning they've got good odds on both being used to bring Blues back to normal. A plan is being put together, Neto telling Enzan in person. However, with what Blues just did, Enzan's stuck on the possibility that Blues might be too far gone, not helped by the memory of loss that learning of what he did invoked. For it is here, in a Sekijima episode, that we first get Enzan's big backstory for the .exe anime, and it is a doozy. For as this backstory goes, the reason we've not seen Enzan's mom, she died when he was young, and with his father busy running IPC, and generally him being a jerkface, why is it this is the relationship and characterization that Sekijima gets right? I mean, it's still extremely harsh and should turn off a very young Enzan from having any positive relationship with his father, but a lot of this we can still put on the Battle Network 3 interpretation of the kid, just wanting to earn his father's approval with all the work he does put in to being the best he can be at everything relevant to him, and not lose that connection like the one he did with his mom. Personally though, if it were me, I'd have never forgiven him for being that cold. But a fear of loss of people important to him has been a consistent factor throughout Enzan's arc regarding Blues going evil, and a motivation to why he needs to save him. So while he's torn because of what's happened, Neto's reassurance that they're going to make it through this is actually helpful? The issue, of course, being that it's delivered in that same idiot manner that Sekijima always writes him in. That nothing bad is going to happen because we won't think of what could go wrong. Not that they won't let it go wrong, as is the actual reassurance. That their efforts will make sure it works. Not that it'll work because I won't consider failure an option. It's once more the difference between someone being brave and enduring through tough odds, and someone recklessly charging through an event and somehow managing to not cause collateral damage. Still, Enzan is truly touched that they're all pulling to help bring Blues, their collective friend, back from the brink. That it's not just important to him to have him back. Thus they lay the trap, sending out an email they expect Blues to intercept about them having their own converters ready, and have Neto wait for Blues to show. Only for Enzan to realize something too late. The vaccine chip was prepared to counter the infection of normal dark chips that corrupt the Navi outside in, not one like the one that affected Blues, which corrupted him inside out, meaning the vaccine might not work, and he races into the trap ready to intervene. Then again, it is a very good question to ask why he wasn't in there already. Enzan's the only one that can use the battle chip gate to send Neto extra battle chips, which he'd need to have a proper advantage with which to pacify Blues long enough for the vaccine chip to even work to begin with. If this is the first active test of the completed vaccine, of course you're not going to want to test it on a subject that's at full health, regardless of the abnormality of Blues' Darksoul. Blues arrives, with Neto ready to face him down, as the converters here, they work fake shells. They're actual converters acting as a second field inside the first, with the other Navis destroying the warp gate from the Nebula's version converters, which prevents Blues from being able to log out of the system and trapping him within the real world. So, what happens to his program if both converters fail? And why have gates like those not been addressed or attacked before to seal off Darkloids from escaping? It's almost as if this was something created and made part of the lore out of nowhere just for this episode, without consideration for what that means in the grand scheme, and how that reads negatively against all previous fights retroactively if that was an option for attack. Now, again, Kenichi Araki previously filled this plot hole about the converter control cores not being as easily destroyed as Searchman initially made them out to be. But this seems like just as much a cop-out when it could just as easily been said that the second dimensional area messed with his ability to log out because he didn't have access to the Scilab converter network as the Navis were protecting it against Axess, since the episode already is showing off their version of the field. And their version of the field has no reason to exist if it's not doing anything for the plot. And now thanks to this side excursion to destroy this gate, which apparently could have been done at any previous time, which is also not how logging in and out of the servers has been shown to work before in this setting, so Yeah, even in an episode that has to be getting overseen heavily by Araki to not screw up the season's climax, Sekijima is still contradicting crap. It consequently makes their grand plan seem far less effective in their complete shutdown of Blues' options, and instead far more contrived. Especially since, suddenly, regular attacks from the two suddenly now affect the dimensional area barriers when they had not at any point before this. Seriously, we've seen all sorts of impacts and damage hit these things to no effect, but suddenly they do affect them? Admittedly, that specific field Blues is attacking is created by the one Scilab made, and could be weaker due to interference from creating one field inside the other. But the problem with that is, there's no time given to explaining it. You're just expected to accept it's possible against all prior evidence that says, no, he shouldn't be able to do that. All they do is blame the power of his dark aura, which 2 episodes before, Neto suppressed just by physical contact, which Neto then stupidly attempts, only with him missing the fact that it required physical contact, and he knows that! You don't get points for an idea that would work in context, but doesn't only because it's done in contradiction to how it worked before. Like, there's a reason the fist of morality is a trope, people. Sometimes someone will not snap back to themselves, especially if they are under evil influence, until you beat the crap out of them. Hell, they even said the plan was to fight Blues to the point the dark aura is weakened. And as written, Neto's not been fighting. Neto's been dodging and tanking attacks, which have done nothing to weaken DarkBlues' Darksoul. They were doing better at this when they were actually physically hitting him. So again, why are they not hitting back? That attack also somehow shreds the cross-fusion armor, and don't even ask me how that even works. The suits aren't supposed to break down like that. But somehow, inexplicably, this begins to work, and the dark aura in the attack is suppressed. But when they try to use the vaccine chip on Blues, it unsurprisingly does not work, because it was only the dark aura fueling the attack that was suppressed, not the dark aura in Blues himself. Meaning this plan only doesn't work because the cast is being stupid again. Or the writer of this episode deliberately making a good plan into an idiot plot with how badly the plan is executed because they believe the cast should be written as brain dead. Either or. Fortunately, as said, Enzan's the only one not being an idiot, thus brought spares of the vaccine to try again. It doesn't work, merely banishing his dark aura, permitting him to try something reckless. Thus forcing Neto to pacify a corrupted crossed-fused Enzan as well, while Enzan tries to reach Blues from inside their synchronized state. Thing is, again, while this is supposed to be dramatic and pivotal in regards to Enzan's character arc, well, it runs up against the fact that cross-fusion works because of bonds, and dark chips sever the bond between a Navi and operator unless they're both under the influence of a dark chip. It's why Regal needed to invent a dark synchro chip in the first place, to get around the bond-breaking aspect of the dark chips to begin with, to slave both Navi and operator mutually into the darkness. Thus, this right here, in context to everything done before and everything done after, this should not have worked. Which is really the disappointing thing about this, and I remember the dub doing a lot to patch over this problem, but Enzan making it work through force of will to get his partner back. Here, in the original version, not so much. It works because it suddenly works. The fusion submerging Enzan back into his memories, and that of the empty, broken home, where the dark aura is set to kill him and consume his body, only for the power to force them to reflect on their first meeting, and for how the longest time all they had was each other, which is once again harmed by the recurring visual continuity error of it being shown with Enzan having an advanced metal PET that only released recently, and not when they first met years ago. To be fair in this case, this is a Mindscape dream recollection, Enzan is dying from the damage cross-fusing like this did to him, and it's clear DarkBlues is screwing with his mental state on top of that. This is a 6 of one, half a dozen of the other sort of error at this point. But that memory of innocence, before Enzan, through his father's influence, became infuriatingly blunt, not only begins to reawaken the true blues from beneath the influence of the Darksoul, it also reminds Enzan once again of everything he's trying to get back, and hardens the resolve in his heart to fight for it with everything he has. And the Darksoul can't do anything to that.
どんな姿になろうとも来るな。どんなに心が汚れてもお前は俺の涙。
Metanoia, the resolve to repent by a change in one's heart.
帰ろう。ブルース、ありがとう、ネット。
The wrap-up. We have idiot plots for the execution of the plan to get Blues back, not the concepts of the plan itself. We have Darkness Will Not Go Quietly, the abnormal Darksoul Blues has being able to generate backups of itself. We have Metanoia to Enzan saving Blues with a hug. Don't get the reference this is invoking? Watch Symphogear. They had a similar scenario play out in their 5th season in 2019. We have Inceptioned to the mental battle Enzan and DarkBlues have for their respective souls. And we have filling his dark soul with light! With the dawn finally coming in the end of the DarkBlues storyline. A plot point to consider for later as well. Netto and Rockman are said to be absorbing the power of Blues' dark aura throughout all of this, not suppressing or dispelling it. I'm not sure if that was deliberate, but that's going to come into play far later in stream. It wouldn't surprise me if this specific Darksoul was a bit more insidious than others, considering the later circumstances around it. Despite that though, this is probably the best episode Sekijima ever did for the show as well. Oh, it still has all of their problems present between the lore contradictions and logical fallacies the cast fall under to make the plot go the way they says it does, despite there being simpler, more consistent means of doing so, literally right in front of them. But the emotional investment in Enzan getting his best friend back carries the weight a lot more than normal. Coupled with the episode not having Sekijima's normal time for the mischaracterization of the cast to roll the idiot ball past the point where a line is crossed, yeah, its positives just barely outweigh its problems to make it passable, if frustrating that a we can only attempt this once plan did not have all the details and backup plans in the event things didn't go to plan available to them in the case it went wrong. As the old saying goes, always plan for failure, even if you don't know what part of a plan might fail. That's just common sense, which of course is so frequently in short supply when Sekijima's involved. At the very least, I don't have to deal with complaining about them again for a while now, because the last 2 episodes of this arc, and Axess as a season, are being headed by Chiba and Araki, and as has been shown, I trust them a lot more with all this.